why does Sanders consistently beat Clinton when matched up against Republicans, but at best ties her head-to-head? Well, it suggests that there are some Republicans that would prefer Sanders to the candidates in their own field. Yet Sanders is, by anybody's admission, the most liberal person in Washington. So what the fuck? What the fuck? Well, that's just it. So you can partition the Republican Party into a few different components. You've got the religious right, it's socially conservative, the people that Cruz is trying to go after, even though they know he's full of shit, right? Then you've got the upper crust that's concerned about the low taxes, that's your Kasich types, right? And these are the people that, we think of as Republicans together, right? And they do compose the bulk of the Republican base. It's the, you get the gods and gun type, right? And then you've got the just rich bastards that don't give a fuck, right? And to be fair, a lot of them they have a noblesse oblige or whatever else, right? But you've also got a more than measurable, in fact, you have a very sizable minority of right libertarians that is growing. You may even call them South Park Republicans. I think that's the term. And they prefer the Republican Party because they see it as being less invasive on civil liberties. Now, the language is confusing and contentious, but these people are liberals from an ideological perspective. Okay? They might call themselves libertarians and attack liberals, but they're liberals. Okay? So, it's because he's a liberal. It's not despite it, right? The reason he does better with Republicans is because he's a liberal. And she's not. Okay? Now, this is upending all the conventional wisdom of the Reagan era, which Clinton is so intrinsically woven into. And I think the point is that it is. That something people need to realize is that the Reagan era is over. But the thing is that she spent her whole life trying to appeal to the silent majority of Reagan Democrats, what the spectrum has up to this point rather delusionally referred to as moderates. They're dead. They're all dead. They've been dead now for years. And what's coming up in their place is a really starkly libertarian electorate attached to both parties. Okay, you've got the left libertarians, attached to Occupy, and then you have your right libertarians, your South Park Republicans, right? These are caricatures, but they're growing bases in both parties. If we get nothing else from Sanders, take heed of the following lesson. Okay, you're going to have to be liberal and proud of it to win an election in a predominantly XY voting reality. And Sanders may consequently be simultaneously ahead of his time and stuck in the past. He might be unstuck in time, maybe even. It's as simple as that right libertarians prefer him over Cruz or Trump, and it's easy to see why if you think about it for a second. It's the Ron Paul voters. Okay, that's why Sanders does better than Clinton. Because, I don't think, if Trump had an anti-establishment streak to him at some point, it's faded, right? Because he caved on issue after issue, right? All of a sudden, he's opposed to abortion. When did that happen? Right? He still holds a couple of perspectives, like on trade and stuff that are appealing, but it's hard to take him seriously. He's probably going to cave on everything, right? I think that if it does end up being Trump versus Clinton, you have to hold out the hope that he won't cave, but the reality is that he probably will cave. Okay? And Cruz is, obviously a firm for the bank, right? So, if you're, a Ron Paul voter, and you're all about, end the Fed, well, I think Sanders is going to sound a lot more appealing with, all this, against the bank bailouts and all that kind of stuff, right? It's really not hard to understand. I know the media is trying to throw all this stuff about a blank slate and blah, blah, blah. You don't need a complex explanation. It's Occam's razor. Okay, it's as clear as day. Um, his message is more appealing to Republicans than either of the Republican candidates are, and so it's obvious why. All right. Conversely, Clinton's got the whole like people are still people are a lot of conservatives are still upset about the Oklahoma City bombing. Okay. And all the stuff about. Uh, I'm not even going to get into it, but Clinton is kind of public enemy number one with these people, right? They might not like Trump, they might not like Cruz, but they hate Clinton, right? So that they're going to swing towards Sanders very, very clearly. Um, there might be a small percentage of them that are a little unclear, and that might want to do a cost-benefit analysis, right? He might not want to take away their guns, but he might, on the other hand, want to raise their taxes a little bit for healthcare, right? But if you actually do polling, what you find is that a lot of these right libertarians are actually in favor of public health care if you ask them the question the right way, right? So it's messy, yeah. It's messy regarding language. It's messy regarding policy. Yeah, very messy. But at the end of the day, it's not at all hard to understand why your Ron Paul type Republican would prefer Bernie Sanders over Ted Cruz or Donald Trump, and certainly over Hillary Clinton, right? Not hard to understand at all. So we don't need complex explanations or blank slates. It's absolutely apparent, it's clear as day. Good afternoon. I'm a little blurry. That's intended, actually. It's about 6:30 at night, and I've been up for a few hours only, so it's a light day. I'm a little blurry because I've got my focus on. I wanted to show you that was just pulled out of my face. It was actually pulled out of my neck. And I want to draw attention to the way it is. See that like that? Right? So this part here is the part that I pulled out, meaning that it was out and then in, right? So I pulled it out like that. That's kind of like a suture, isn't it? And so when I point out, I can put that back there. So when I point out that my face, like all the tension in my face, like relieved when I pulled that out, I don't think that it's entirely in my mind. That's a suture, damn it. In fact, I may even wonder if it is a suture. I had my face stitched up years ago, and I don't remember the stitches ever falling out, believe it or not. So maybe it's the answer. I've got all these ridiculous hairs coming out of my neck. Maybe they're not actually hairs. Maybe they are. Sorry, I'm trying to get it on my finger here. Maybe that actually is a suture. You won't be able to see it, but I can see a little bit of a I can see what looks like a head, but it's not particularly convincing. It could be like like something out of like the set of a needle, right? See, they're supposed to fall out, but if you do them on the inside, they might not, right? I don't know. All I know is that it was a big bump, um, and it's gone now, and my face, like, it feels instantly, like, more free, right? And I noticed this when I was playing with it, right? I mean, because it actually took a few weeks for it to appear and then come out. It's what's been happening is every time it looks like I got the last one out, another one shows up. As far as I can tell, there's no more. But cross your fingers. You know, I'm hoping that's the last one. It's the beginning of the summer. So I mean, again, everything is aligning. Hopefully, that's the end of it, sort of thing. Um, I wasn't able to. I wasn't able to catch. The doctor left a message for the ENT. I wasn't able to catch them. That's why I went down to the phone, but they were closed. So I'll have to try that again on Monday. But I've long suspected that this is kind of a factor in what's going on, right? Because if that is like let's say that the suture was pulling my my skin together, right? That's going to create an opposite reaction. I mean, just from the physics of it, right? If you um, close your neck tense, or the skin on your neck tense, then your body's going to want to pull your jaw back, right? And I've kind of long suspected that might have something to do with it. It's hard for me to conclude that it's like the only part of it, but it might be like the thing that's actually pissing me off might actually have been that, right? And I keep pulling them out, and they keep coming back, and I keep pulling them out, right? It feels good right now. I'll have to keep an eye on it, but like I say, I'm not actually convinced it was a hair. I suspect it might have been a suture from years ago, and that a bunch of them, like that, they might be like scattered inside my face and just kind of coming out, kind of thing. And it's just a matter of time before they're all gone. I know that's insane, but you know, hopefully that's the end of it. And like even as I'm talking to you, like I can feel like the tension in my ears, like releasing. It's a very strange feeling, but it actually feels quite good. We'll see how this goes. There is something running somewhere. I don't know it, but it's pretty loud. I'm not sure if I'm dealing with kind of a consequence of fans moving back and forth or what, but I know that I turned that fan off this afternoon. I figured it's been on for a good week. Maybe I can finally turn it off, but it didn't take long for my head to feel a little funny. So I am pointing at the air in the basement as the source of the migraines. I'm starting to wonder maybe if it might have something to do with the bed bugs. Could it be the case that the guy upstairs could have actually sprayed some pesticides down here without telling me? That would be pretty egregious. But and I don't think I can get him to admit it either. I'm gonna have to just keep an eye on that. It's one thing to spray. It's another thing to spray without telling anyone. And you can imagine what kind of trouble somebody would be in. I mean, I couldn't even how could somebody be so negligent, right? You see, you might want to, okay, let's say, see, what you have to do is you have to keep in mind that you're dealing with somebody that's slightly mentally retarded, right? So you have to keep in mind that there's not clarity of thought. Or you have to rephrase that, you have to try and analyze the behavior from the mind of a child, because that's what you're dealing with, right? And ultimately, you have to reduce the situation to one where you're giving a child too much control, right? And when you give a child too much power, you have to expect that they're going to abuse it, right? And then you have to point the fingers at yourself for putting a child in a position of authority. So if you have a child that thinks that they have, an insect issue, like bed bugs, what they're going to, the thought process of a child in that situation is going to be that they don't want to get caught, right? They think that they've done something bad, and they don't want to get in trouble, right? So they might think that the right approach would be to, spray the area without telling anyone so that they don't get caught, they don't get in trouble. And they might not have the foresight, or just simply the understanding of the dangerousness of pesticides. I've seen this guy spray pesticides around. He doesn't seem to have the slightest idea, right? He's just not cognizant of the fact that pesticides are dangerous, right? So yeah, he might be concerned that he might get in trouble if someone finds out that he's got bed bugs, and so he'd want to take the steps of eliminating the problem before anybody finds out. And then when you try to catch him, he'll just keep lying to you, kind of thing, right? See, the problem here is that you've placed somebody with decreased cognitive abilities in a position of power. I think everybody realized, well, it's kind of an unspoken truth that the brother is the boss, kind of thing. But, like, literally speaking, he is the landlord, right? And everybody knows, I know it, his brother knows it, and really he knows it, that, there's going to be some bad decisions that are made, and, there's no real authority, but there is legal authority, right? And, is it not the case that what I'm describing to you, like, that's somebody that not only should that person not be the landlord and, and control over several units in an entire building, is it not the case that sounds like a person that really should be living under supervision, right? That sounds like somebody that probably can't really take total control of themselves, right? Maybe can do day-to-day things, or seems like they can do day-to-day things. but um, ultimately needs a little bit of help, right? Because when they are in a situation like that, um, they don't have the um, uh, cognition or cognitive capacity to um, understand the consequences of their actions, right? I mean in a fully broad sense, right? Um, if you take this situation, I mean, let's say, for example, there was a legal concern, right? And if you take that situation to its logical conclusion, you end up with the conclusion that this is an individual that would probably lie to police officers. They may even lie under oath because they um, are just not intellectually developed enough to. Um, I mean, it's just that childlike fear, right? And that insistence, or that feeling that you're going to get away with it if you can just talk your way out of it, kind of thing, right? I think that all of us have memories of being children and doing something that we weren't supposed to do and then lying our way out of it. Um, I think everybody gets away with that once or twice when they're a kid, right? But you're supposed to get to a point at when when you grow up a little bit, where you realize that, okay, maybe I did make a mistake, but it's more important that I take responsibility for what I've done, right? And if you can't have that, like if you can never get to that point, then you never get to the point where you're an adult, right? That might be the defining point between childhood and adulthood, is the ability to take responsibility for your mistakes, right? So if you're dealing with somebody that's developmentally um, disabled, or it's whatever term you want to use, um, but has that level of retardation where they can't get to that point where they're able to take responsibility for things, where they're more concerned about getting caught or getting in trouble. Um, you can't put that person um, in a position like this, right? Now, I mean, I'm not. There's no easy answers, right? I don't want to attack his brother, right? I mean, it's um, on some level. I mean, from a legal perspective, I mean, who's negligent here? Um, like I say, I don't think that you can hold him legally responsible, right? So if it turns out, I'm just, this is purely deductive. I don't have any evidence at all, and I'm not sure how I could go about proving it. Like I said, what got me on this was just the point that I don't think he'd admit it, right? But if my hypothesis is accurate, um, I can't hold him negligent. I can't hold him responsible, right? He would be, you know, at the very least, we could, use this as an argument um, to, um, like he would need to put a different landlord in, right? The property owner would have to take away his ability as a landlord. I think that's the strongest um, outcome as far as he's concerned, right? As far as negligence is concerned, you would have to the negligence would have to fall on his brother, right? Because he should have known that you can't put him in a position like this. Um, because even if you set out everything up so that, like if you have any problems, call me, or if there's any difficult decisions, call me. There's still that, and you put the two of them together, right? And it's partners in crime, right? Um, and because they're going to feed off each other, right? Because it's having two childlike mindsets um, that are going to reinforce each other in upholding um, the lack of responsibility, right? And what that does is it builds a. I mean, it builds a kind of concept of it disconnects. Um, see, my head's funny right now. It's not. I'm not having difficulty, but I'm kind of scatterbrained. I feel a little. It's like I feel hungover, right? So we're gonna keep that on, um, but the logic will reinforce itself, right? Um, so that if one of them is presenting an argument around the fear of being caught, then the other one will uphold that because they'll think in the same kind of way, right? And what you're doing is well, I mean, it's the same thing as if you take two kids and you put those two kids in any situation like that, right? And they'll reinforce themselves, they'll confuse each other, and the lack of responsibility will be reinforced from one to the other, right? So, I don't know how I'd even go about trying to demonstrate what I'm thinking. It's purely hypothetical, but it's certainly worrying, to say the least. For right now, I suppose that what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to leave the fan running until I can get the air cleared out in here. And I'll need to have, I'll need to open all the windows, open all the doors. I'll need to wait until the temperature comes up over 25. I think it's on Monday. It's supposed to actually get a little bit of humidity. So I'll be able to open the windows and open the doors then and try to clear some of this out. But I do kind of I'm very suspicious that that's what happened. That he became fearful that he was going to be punished for having bed bugs, and so he sprayed down here. I don't know if it was just he sprayed in the back, or if he actually sprayed in the unit while I was gone, or something else along those lines. But I suspect that I had a reaction to pesticides, and that the reason why that's the reason that opening the window and running the fan has had a positive effect in minimizing the effects of it. So, like I say, it's purely hypothetical. I'm going to actually, you know what? I should probably get a blood test or something done to see if I can. I mean, I'm more concerned about long-term effects, and obviously, I don't want that to happen again. So, if I can come up with some kind of data that demonstrates something, maybe I can take it to somebody. And like I say, I've said repeatedly that I don't want to come off as particularly arrogant about this, and I'll state in absolute terms that I don't see any point in punishing a retarded person. It's more about changing the circumstances so that there's less of an ability for harm, right? I mean, I don't think that again, I can't blame him. I don't, you know. I think that if there's a problem and if there's someone that I have to blame, it's blaming the person that put him that allowed him that level of responsibility. Because I think it's as clear as day that he can't be in any position of responsibility, right? No matter how trivial. And it's a very different mindset, right? I think that that's one of the mistakes that came out of the that came out of the 60s and the changes of the 60s, right? This idea that disabled people can take care of themselves. It's stupid. Okay? Retarded people are retarded, and they can't take care of themselves, and you're negligent if you suggest that they can. Okay? There's a difference, obviously, there's a difference between somebody that's, has a physical or a mental disability. Okay? But this idea that people that have mental disabilities can take care of themselves you're defaulting on your responsibility, and it's a collapse of social responsibility. It's wrong. It's not just wrong. Like I say, it's stupid. It's a stupid way to think. Okay, and it's something that really needs to be reversed. But I mean, the world is as it is, right? I can't snap my fingers. And I mean, when I'm talking about a lack of responsibility, I'm not like it's not. That's not coincidental, right? I don't think there's a person in the world that thinks a retarded person can take care of themselves. I think there's a lot of people that use it as an excuse so that they don't have to, right? And that's the travesty, is that people are reneging on their responsibilities. And society is enabling them to. I really don't think that society should be enabling anybody to renege on their responsibilities like that. Now we can talk about, whether, you're born into something, so you're, sentenced. I don't think so, right? I think that there should be broader responsibility sharing, but at the same time, however you approach that, you really can't be giving retarded people levels of responsibility or levels of control over other people, right? It's a big problem. And like I say, I don't want to come down on. I mean, you have to understand the situation from his perspective, right? He's not running an apartment building. I mean, he is legally, but that's not his intent. His intent is that he's trying to find a way to allow for some family members of his to exist in a financially self-sustaining way, right? So, I mean, if it wasn't for his brother living here, he would sell the place or tear it down, right? I mean, he's not into this for the money, right? This isn't about making a profit at all, right? It's just about finding a way for his brother to be self-sufficient, right? And I mean, a big part of it. I mean, the whole point is that there's a very low level of responsibility, right? But even that level of responsibility really needs to be um, minimized, because we can see. Now, like I say, I'm going to need to see. I'm starting to feel a little bit better now that the fan's drawing some air out. So um, I've got lots of circumstantial evidence. I'm going to need to take a blood test. I think it's pretty clear, to see if like what it is that might be fucking with me here. I'll have to do some research into that, just to like what would you spray if you're concerned about bed bugs, and what would the effects be? But I mean, again, let's take a step back and put ourselves in the mind of a child. You wouldn't even, because the primary concern from the mind of a child would be being caught and disciplined for something, right? And that's what he would be thinking. He'd be thinking that I got caught with bed bugs, right? Like he wouldn't even call it an exterminator because he might get caught, right? He might get in trouble. So, if there was spraying down here, like he probably sprayed himself, kind of thing. And would he have any concept of dosages? Of course not, right? So, I seem to be okay as long as I keep the fan running. But I'm gonna have to figure this out. Unfortunately. For the rest of the day, I'm gonna get a little bit of editing done, and I'll see where I am. I've got to catch up on the Hillary thing, and I'll see where I'm going from there. The fact is, I've always been a Yankees fan. Yes, that is something that Hillary actually said. I don't mean in any way to question the ingenuousness of the gesture, but it strikes me as rather daft to argue that meeting the Pope the day before the New York primary for the Democratic Party is in some way not campaigning. There's lots of Catholics in New York. It's 33% apparently.